Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Sunday, June 30th, 2024. End of the month is already here. Since the last time that we've been on the air, back was May 15th, during that week, we had just witnessed a bunch of X-flares, increased space weather, and geomagnetic storms, lots of aurora boreal. And since that time, we have seen a decline in the intensity of the X-class flares. Not sure if what we saw back in May was the last finale for solar cycle 25, but I can tell you right now that things appear to be stable. Today, we are looking at a sunspot number of 205. That is increased. So still currently winding down this maximum. But today, right now, we're looking at solar winds at 482.1 kilometers per second with a density of 5.49. As I said, sunspot number is at 205. KP indice is at 3, and the 24-hour max is also at 3. Wanted to talk about the G4 storm, the surprise storm that we had. That did create lots of aurora as well, space weather. But other than that, we haven't really had any major solar events since around May 15th, which is good, right? Cosmic radiation dosage rates are much lower today than what they were back on May. I'm sorry, they're increased, not lower. They're negative 4.5. During the events with all the X-class flares, it was a negative 12. So the higher the number negative, obviously, the less cosmic rays we're getting. Closer to 0, the more we're getting. So still seeing that dosage rate below 0, but not as deep. And it kind of brings me up to the point I wanted to bring up before we got into today's show, which is the strength of this current solar max. And I know there's people out there who are trying to make this connection that this is somehow putting a wrench in the grand solar minimum, and I'm here to tell you it's not. The X-class flare events that we had back in May were much weaker than what we had in the previous solar maximum cycle in solar cycle 24. We had X-class flares up to 41, X41, okay, back in September of 17. So we've seen stronger solar maxes. Yes, sunspot numbers have been a bit higher at this time. Yes, sunspot numbers are up right now, and we are looking at activity as far as that goes. But with solar flares, the actions have not been as loud as we had seen recently. So with that said, yes, we're still seeing maximum conditions from our star, but things are declining. We have a 0 or 5% chance of X-class flares as well, so that's not very high. And even though we appear to have quite a bit of sunspot activity, that should say something for you right there. Just interesting facts. I know on the outside things can look like this solar max is super strong. But at the same time, when you compare it to the previous solar max, this one actually is still weaker, even though we are seeing a bit more sunspot activity than thought. But the X-class flares, all of that, it's not as strong as what we saw in solar cycle 24. Let's see, I did want to mention real quick. There are 2 CMEs that we are watching right now that left the sun the past few days. They're expected to graze Earth's magnetic field on July 1st, that's tomorrow, through the 3rd. So the most effective hit will probably come from the CME on July 3rd. Minor G1 geomagnetic storms are possible before the 4th of July. How neat would that be if it got stronger than that? We could see aurora after the fireworks. That'd be great. But right now, it appears to be a weak, and it's a very low chance of any kind of storm forming at all from these CMEs. Part of this, a filament from magnetism in the sun's southern hemisphere, erupted on June 29th, and it's on its way through space. and they are actually expecting the minor impact from that particular blow. All right, let's go over to our website. We haven't been able to do that in a while, right? But let's go and check out thegrandsolarminimum.com. Here we are. Take a look at that that orbital lineup, and I'm going to talk about this here for a second because there's a very important event coming up here in the next several months. We are now thinking somewhere October, maybe possibly September. But it's important. Here's Earth right here where the blue arrow is. Okay. Earth is going to make its way around where Mars is right now by September, October of this year. Now, you can see the four gas giants already in position. Earth will be smack dab in the middle of the four gas giants. Mars will be out of the picture over here. These other planets also will not be included. And it'll just be Earth and the four gas giants on this side of our star. And a lot of us have talked about the Milankovitch cycle for many years. I know on this channel it was something that was mentioned from its beginning. And now we are starting to see that coming to fruition. And another reason why I'm mentioning this is that those of you who've been with us that long remember us talking about it back in the Wheelbarger days. The Milankovitch cycle was going to be a rare, something to be alive for, to see for ourselves. And what is that impact going to be when that particular orbit pattern has formed? And the biggest deal is going to be the tug on the Earth's orbit from the sun by these four gas giants. Now, we're not talking about pulling us out into deep space or anything like that, but even the slightest bit of variation of Earth being pulled away from the sun's orbit, just the slightest bit. You guys are very familiar with what happens when TSI is raised or lowered by just 1 watt per square meter. That's a big deal, right? Either positive or negative. That's a huge deal. So imagine Earth being pulled back from the sun's orbit just a little bit, and it causes a 1.5 watt per square meter difference in TSI, on top of the fact that the sun, as it goes back into a minimum, will also lose TSI. Okay? Lower TSI, total solar irradiance, has in the past led to troubled times, shall we say. Talking about crops, talking about cold temperatures, hot temperatures. We have seen this correlation. On top of the fact that we will be in a La Nina by this fall, with the Milankovitch cycle orbit, with the variation in TSI, and quite frankly, we could see a lot less solar activity by this fall as well. Time will tell, but things are shaping up. And if all of you that follow this channel, you know about La Nina and its potentially cooling effect it could have in some parts of the country, some parts of the world. We all know that the potential cooling effect that TSI could have if it's decreased. And if we're talking about a 2.5 watt per square meter drop, that's going to be significant. I'm not saying it's going to be the initial impact in September, but just think of the possibility of what it could do with this particular orbit pattern. Again, correlation. When we had strong maximum, we also when we had the medieval warming period, we had a strong solar maximum. So it shows us that increased solar activity does have a warmer situation on Earth. And we've all looked at the Dr. Roy Spencer graph, the UAH. We've seen the record temperatures, or so-called record temperatures, but temperatures are higher than what they've been 5 months ago. again, we're in a max. CO2 is thriving, and then you have that warm weather. Crops are growing. We are seeing bigger vegetation. I know I can speak to that on my side of things here. I've personally witnessed it. So there are benefits to increased solar activity as well. Usually it's a period of time that we're thriving. It's just those times of low solar activity that could bring trouble. And as many have said before in the past, time will tell. That's the truth. It's not some kind of canned response or cliche response. Time will tell. I know things look like it's warm period and we're having all this heat and everything, but it is summer, so I'll remind you all of that. Let's take a look at LASCO real quick. Not very much in the sense of CMEs. That one big one right there, that was I think from the 29th. And it's, compared to what we saw back in May, the star is starting to settle down a little bit. Definitely a lot less activity than what we had witnessed before. All right, let's go over to, well, I hope anyway, watchers. It's been struggling actually this whole time. We'll try this first. I wanted to talk about the Midwest real quick because I do have some things to go over when it comes to crops right now. I want to take a look at our current situation. Again, the grand solar minimum has an impact in the past on crop. So that's kind of why we focus on that here on this channel too. We haven't done this in a while, but flooding has affected millions across acres of farmland in Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa this month, causing severe damage to the farmlands and farming communities of the most crucial regions in the United States. Crop production experts estimate a reduction of almost 1.2 or 3 million acres worth of soybean and corn crops. So that's a lot. That's a lot of acres. 3 million acres worth of soybean and corn crops to be affected. Historic flooding in the Midwest has left farmlands into swamplands, causing severe damage to farming and communities and crops, especially soybeans and corn. This has raised concerns about the possibility of food prices going up soon. Soon? Dave and Judy Oberg, a farming couple out of South Dakota, showed the flood damage to their homes, farmland, to CBS reporter Jonah Kaplan. Almost 3,000 acres of their and their extended family's farmlands turned into swamp, destroying crop even before they had a chance to grow. Although all they could save was some belongings and a box of deeds for their lands, which has been used for farming for generations. So just this one farmer right now is telling you that they are not going to be able to produce crops in 3,000 acres. Now, this is just one farmer's story. We're also dealing with more severe weather coming out to the Central Plains, into the southern part of the United States, which will cause more flooding. Expected 2 to 4 inches of rain in parts of Iowa and Illinois. And this is also creating a problem with the Mississippi. We're starting to see flood levels to areas that aren't even getting as much rain as some of us are here in areas like South Dakota, Illinois, Iowa. Those areas are really getting pounded with rain right now. So as the flood stages continue to rise along the Mississippi, this is going to affect cities and states of areas that have not seen the amount of rain that's fallen so far. But there is more severe weather. So with that said, let's take a look at crop reports here. If this will load for us, hopefully, yes, it will. All right, it's been a long time since we've gone over one of these. I wanted to mention first the perfect temperature right now when it comes to soil temperature. We are looking at some very good soil temperatures across the United States in areas that are thriving in their crops. But let's take a look. First of all, our drought monitor looks way better than it has in a few years, actually. A lot less brown and a lot less red, and very little brown and yellow across the regions. So that's good. We are definitely seeing the rain, no doubt about that. But here's the soil temperatures, and very impressive. This is across the heartland here, guys. This is the important part of the country when it comes to growing crops. So we have the temperatures for crops to thrive. The problem is the moisture. And as I just showed you, it's now going to affect some of the crops that we have standing already in the ground, especially Illinois and Iowa. So let's check out the corn that has emerged so far in Illinois is 95%. It's down a little bit from last year, or 96%. 5-year average is 95. Not bad. This is just emerged. Okay, this is not corn silking yet. Corn emerged in Iowa is at 97% right now, and the 5-year average has been 99%. Last year we were 100% emerged at that time. Let's check out what South Dakota. Last year they were 100%. Now they're 98% emerged crops. Okay? The reason why I'm bringing up these numbers is that all the flooding that we're getting in the Midwestern areas, almost 100% of their crops are now going to fail in most of these areas because of these floods that we're experiencing right now. Nebraska is at 100%. That's up a little bit from last year. The 5-year average is 98%. So this is very concerning, as the states that I've mentioned are 100% emerged in their corn crops, and if they're underwater, it's not going to be good. Soybeans, let's take a look in the areas that are affected by the flooding right now. Illinois, 96% of their crop is emerged. Iowa, 99% of their crop is emerged. Minnesota, 97%. Missouri, 100%. Nebraska, 100%. South Dakota, 99%. Again, these crops have emerged across their states. Now, that doesn't mean every single crop in the state of South Dakota and all the other states that I mentioned are ruined and lost, but there is some concern right now. The fact that I guess what I'm saying is if we only had 70% of the crops emerged and the flood waters receded, and then the other 30% comes out, it's not going to be a lot. It's still going to be a failure, but it's better than nothing. What I am saying is that everything that has been planted in certain parts of these states is now going to be ruined and lost. Again, the report said 3 million acres. 3 million acres. Conditions. Right now, they're fair in Illinois. They're pretty good in Iowa, most parts. A lot of good reports so far as the crops are in good shape. But that was as of June 25th. So we will continue to monitor this. This is something to watch over the next several weeks. Crucial time. Again, we're getting the good warmth. Lots of humidity, lots of warmth across the United States. Even in areas that don't usually grow good crops are thriving as long as we're avoiding all this rain. And that's the concern right now. And the conditions are good for this. But like I said, if we continue to see the rain that we're seeing, that's going to spell trouble for the Midwest. So we're going to continue to keep our eyes on the crop situation, the flooding across central parts of the United States, and we'll go over the weather too because that'll be impacted as well. Let's talk about Hurricane Beryl first. Now, since we have been live, Beryl has strengthened. It is now at a Category 4. We also have seen maximum sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. Right now, they are sitting at, Gus was at 150. Maximum sustained winds are at 130 miles per hour. Now, this storm is going to be one to watch. We are well early into the forecast, okay? It's a Category 4 now. So Barbados, um, the Lesser Antilles, the Caribbean, those areas are the most worried about right now because of how strong the storm is. Also, want to mention this is the earliest that we've ever seen a storm this strong in the hurricane season. So mark it down for the record books. Yes, we've had warmth for the last 4 or 5 months and globally, so the water temperatures are getting better. We're neutral right now with El Nino, so we're not in La Nina or El Nino, so we have less factors from wind shear, not strong enough to pull these things apart. They thought maybe this was a concern at first, but the wind shear in this storm right now is too weak to do anything to this storm. It's a Category 4 right now. As it stands, it's not going to impact the United States. However, this is still far away out. This forecast is only good when you look at them, really. The first 3 days of it are the best of the forecast. But there are some indications that if the high pressure system in the south begins to weaken during the week of the 4th of July, which is this week coming up, then there is a chance that this storm could turn north. In fact, AccuWeather already has that possibility right in front of your face as we are talking about this. So what does that mean? I'll get into that here in just a second. Let's take a look at a couple of hurricane maps first, though. I haven't done this in a while. Missed this. Dangerous storm, though. I don't miss that part. This could be a destructive one across the Caribbean as well as the Lesser Antilles. Barbados is right now the main focus. Then right behind it, there's a 40% chance of another formation. Interesting to see the activity right now going on in the Atlantic. They have predicted that this would be a busy season for hurricanes, and they are not lying. It's beginning to show us that. Let's take a look at another track here. This is from the National Weather Service. Major hurricane all the way through Jamaica, and then the uncertainty of how strong this hurricane will be across the tip of Mexico. But again, there is a pressure system that we're going to be watching. For that to change up will be the key. Now the increase of this disturbance, which was just 40%, has now just went up. As of 2 p.m. today, there is a 70% chance of a disturbance forming from this X here. So right behind Beryl is a potentially another tropical storm that could impact the Caribbean and also the Atlantic. Take a look at our live radar shot of this bad boy. And the thing that we need to see here, guys, is, yes, it's far away. It's not affecting us at all at this point. But the strength of this eye wall, how organized this storm is becoming right now. It did hit some minor wind shear here, but as you can see, the center of the storm is just getting more and more organized, and that wind shear is not playing a factor. I will show you that what we're looking at here is the inflow, and that appears to be very healthy and strong, and that's what's going to continue to strengthen the storm. Out here, the outflow, everything is happening as it should, and we will continue. Like I said, we'll continue to keep our eyes on this, but it looks like we may have another one to talk about by midweek if this continues to grow. Take a look at the southeast radar right now. This is where most of the action is happening. Florida continues to get drenched. Southern part of Florida has seen so much rain already this year, they're probably saying knock it off. Across the Panhandle, parts of Alabama and Mississippi, and of course across the Carolinas. More showers and thunderstorms across the region. Let's take a look at the United States as a whole. Really, that's the most, and the Northeast really is active. Central part of the United States, again, we're talking about more possibilities of storms across the central part. Nothing crazy today, as you can see. But the real threat right now is in the southwest. or southeast, I apologize. Southeast and the northeast with some showers in the Atlantic coast, southern parts of New York, Massachusetts. A closer look here. Everything staying south. Some isolated showers moving across the capital region there in Albany. Some showers and storm activity lightly, though, in Pennsylvania. There is a severe thunderstorm watch lighting up across this front here, as you guys can see it in all states that it's in. We are seeing some severe weather popping up here. And also, New Hampshire, Vermont, and parts of Maine seeing some severe weather as well. Currently, temperatures are definitely supporting what is needed to keep these temperatures or these storms fueled here. Let's go backwards a little bit. Start off here on Sunday, and then this is Monday, July 1st. Temperatures are very appropriate for this time of year, moving into the second day of July. We see the temperatures across most of the country in the 80s and 70s. Some areas, believe it or not, are going to see some 60s as highs. Here's July 2nd. Again, summer for most of us, the central part of the United States. We're watching that area for severe weather as the week continues on through. But I have a feeling the areas that we see in the yellow in the daytime highs, we're also probably going to see some likely heavy rain in those cooler temperature areas. But it is nothing but sunshine across the United States for the 4th of July. So most of us are going to enjoy this weather that's going to be pretty moderate for summertime. Nothing crazy, nothing too hot. This is about normal for the United States on the 4th of July week. And here we are finally to Friday. We see some of those 100 triple-digit temperatures possibly moving up the East Coast, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and trying to reach in the areas of Pennsylvania and New York as well. That's a pretty decent swath of heat there. And then, of course, if you guys take a look at, I'll move that out of the way a little bit. Look at the Southwest. We are baking out here, guys. But it is July in the summertime, and that is what we usually get when it comes to summer in the Southwest. So California looking pretty hot. New Mexico, Arizona. Again, I don't want to be in that. It's extreme temperatures across the entire state of California. We'll have to continue to watch what kind of moisture situation is set up. And this goes to Sunday, July 7th. That's about as far as I'm going to take it. I usually don't trust most forecasts that go past 7 days. Everything else is just speculation. So let's check out what kind of moisture we could be looking at. Pardon me a second, guys, for not being ready. Reset moisture. So June 30th today, pretty moderate, nice day for most of us. High pressure across the central part of the United States and some of the states we mentioned with the flooding issues. So high pressure kind of hanging out, keeping it dry for us for a little while. They definitely need it, but right behind it is another low front moving in by Monday, July 1st. And the rains begin, pushing that high pressure system across the northeast, keeping us dry and warm for most of the week. Heavy rains return to Wisconsin, parts of Iowa on July 2nd. More storms moving across Iowa and southern Minnesota and Nebraska, Kansas as well. Severe is the word here we're looking at. That low pressure moves out by July 3rd. Another system forming in the Midwest. This time it's going to affect more Missouri, Illinois. After a few days off of no moisture, Missouri and Illinois will get multiple shots of rain. And unfortunately, on July 4th, we might be having a lot of cloud coverage here across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and some parts of Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. Also, don't want to forget about North Dakota and South Dakota. More moisture and rain back in the forecast for you. Another storm system moving through the Midwestern on July 5th. Temperatures do cool off again a little bit. Again, this is from the rain. Some rain from the northeast by next Sunday, but we do see the constant pattern here of showers hitting Illinois, Iowa, and then moving a little bit further southward a couple times. So it's a 1-2 punch for that area. However, we are still going to be watching the hurricane situation that could. That's another thing I didn't see. The forecast for outward. Let's take a look and see if they've got Beryl in the Gulf by the time we get to the 12th. Doesn't appear. GFS does not like the possibility at this time of any kind of storm making its way through the Gulf. So that's good news early on. Here's a look at our El Nino region. We are neutral, by the way, folks. That's right, neutral. The Nino 1-2 region, which brings in the cooler waters into the 3-4 region. And right now it's hanging around the -1. And the 3-4 region, we are slightly above zero at 0.174 above baseline. So right now, I think the biggest headline is got to be the amount of flooding that we have going on in the Midwest. Hurricane Beryl is right now a non-issue for the United States, but could be a problem for the Caribbean and also parts of Mexico. And really what it comes down to is we're watching a high-pressure system, and just depending on where this high-pressure system goes. Right now, it's non-existent here near the southwest. So we don't see that trough that brings this storm into the Gulf at this time. There's a possibility right here. I guess by next week, we'll have to see where that high-pressure system is, if that's the high-pressure system they're talking about. So if this gets further south, this could possibly counterclockwise pick up that storm and give it a more northerly type of travel path. But that's still way far away, guys. We got plenty of time to worry about that. Other than that, I'd like to say hello to a few people in the chat. Thanks, Mari, for taking care of all the annoyances out there. Good to see Arnold Schmidt out there. Melody, good to see you. Kirk, hello there. The Schultz, I think that's what it says. I'm not sure. And many others out there that are new to the channel. Welcome. I know some of our folks out there probably were not expecting a midday show on Sunday, and that's okay. Antonio, good to see you as well. That looks like pretty much it. So Randy Willis out of Tennessee, good to see you, sir. Matthew McDonald as well, follower from our Twitterverse. And guys, we're going to continue to monitor the hurricane situation, the flooding situation, and of course any solar weather that could be impacting planet Earth as well. But for now, that's going to do it for our Sunday report here on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We will be doing more broadcasts throughout the week, so keep eye open for that. Until then, folks, have a great day. We'll talk soon.